a couple of things. Take the risk and believe in yourself.
Yeah.
If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But take the risk and believe in yourself, and then surround yourself with people that know what they're doing and believe in you. And we wouldn't have grown. We wouldn't be where we are today if we hadn't surrounded ourselves with people who really cared about our mission and who had expertise in certain areas that I just didn't have. And that was the key.
This is the Late Night Startup Show, where we sit down with local entrepreneurs, startups, and business owners to dive into their entrepreneurship journey, telling their stories to provide content for them and value to the aspiring. On this episode of the Late Night Startup Show, we were speaking with Jamie Lackey, founder of the nonprofit Helping Mamas, a nonprofit in Atlanta connecting helping mamas to mamas who need help. They're donating a ton of baby supplies and baby essentials to nonprofits in the area that support women and children. They're doing incredible work. They're 5 years old and have expanded rapidly and operating their nonprofit like it's a for-profit. And she is just doing great work and making a huge impact and connecting to other people doing similar things and just focusing on the positive and doing good in this world. Jamie's very wise, very smart, knows what she's doing. She's passionate about helping mamas, and she's passionate about being a mama as well. So if you have any interest in creating a nonprofit or starting a nonprofit or being in the nonprofit sector, you have to listen to this conversation. It has some great insight of how to go about that. Before we get into it, let's thank our sponsors, RCR Video Marketing Group. We're an Atlanta-based video production company providing compelling content for local businesses and startups and entrepreneurs, and we also travel all over the freaking world doing video production as well. It's what we do. It's what we're passionate about. Ray and I have been doing it for over a decade now, and we just absolutely love it. We want to help businesses grow by providing our expertise in video production. So if you have any questions about that, feel free to hit us up. Also, Digits in Motion. Rob and his team at Digits in Motion are just as passionate about helping businesses grow through killer websites and incredible apps. They're just developing some great stuff for businesses in and around Atlanta, so and all over the states. If you need a website or an app developed, please hit up Rob. He's incredibly passionate about what he does and just bends over backwards to make sure that you're satisfied. All right, now let's get into this conversation that we had with Jamie. Jamie, thank you so much for coming to the podcast. I'm really excited about our conversation because we were kind of talking before this, and like I said, this whole year with my video production company, we've just been doing nothing but nonprofit or for-profit, but very cause-based businesses. And I don't know if I've ever had a more fulfilling year in my video production career. So I'm really excited to talk to you because Julie, I think, is your assistant.
Yeah,
right?
She's what we call a Vista. So she's like the Peace Corps for the United States, but she handles all of our social media and
awesome.
Communications.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, she contacted me and was excited about the possibility of having you on because you run your nonprofit like for-profit, and I think that's huge. And any successful for-profit businesses or any successful nonprofit is probably running it as a for-profit business. So before we get into that, tell me a little bit about your history. I know you're a mom with a type 1 diabetic 13-year-old. I'm type 1 diabetic myself. So we had no idea until 5 minutes ago.
I know, small world.
Yeah, really. So just tell me a little bit about yourself and how you got to helping mamas.
Sure. So, like I said, I'm a mom, but before that, I have been a social worker in the nonprofit industry for almost 20 years.
Wow.
And just saw a huge need. So I'd worked in every industry in the nonprofit sector that you can imagine. I'd worked with refugees. I'd worked in adult literacy. I'd worked in mental health. You name it. Social workers kind of tend to jump around and get our exposure to lots of different populations. And the one occurring thing to me was that their basic needs were all the same. And I saw that we were doing not a really good job, but a better job with food, right? Everybody knows there's food banks, food pantries. You know where to refer people to if they have a food, shortage. There are places to go.
Yeah.
But the one thing there never was a place for baby supplies. And so I was seeing families in case notes, like my staff were doing parenting education classes, and they would say that there were families using plastic bags for diapers, or they were washing out disposable diapers, which is just so heartbreaking. And instead of like focusing on all their skills that they were trying to teach them, like parenting education or job training, they were desperately looking for all these resources.
Wow.
Yeah. So there was just no coordinated effort. And I thought, I love being a mom. It's literally the hardest job I've ever done ever. And I have the greatest support system that you can imagine. And I thought, how are all these moms that I've been serving all these years, how are they doing it, on their own or with very limited resources? So it just kind of came to me like, if there's a gap, can we fill it? And I have a ton of friends that are moms. Would they be willing to donate and get involved? And we started in my house and garage and my best friend's basement. And then here we are 5 years later, and we're in a 9,000 square foot warehouse. So
wow.
It's pretty exciting.
So how much inventory, I guess is it called inventory?
I do.
Right?
I call it product inventory. Yeah.
How much of that are you facilitating right now?
A lot. So we've distributed over 850,000 items over the last 4 years. This year, we may do 850,000 items this year alone, close to 1 million. Just getting the bigger space helped us to be able to accept more things. Like we have a dock high door now.
Okay.
So we're able to get large scale donations, which we weren't really able to get before. So that's been the game changer for us. But yeah, it's crazy. There was one day alone 2 weeks ago where we did 2,500 items out to the community in one day.
Wow.
So
Julie said that you run it like a for-profit, but it sounds like your entire history is in the nonprofit sector. So what gives you this ability to see it as for-profit processes or practices for your nonprofit?
Yeah, so I just have seen nonprofits not do well, right? They're afraid to ask, they're afraid to grow, they're afraid to hold on to resources and revenue because they think they're not supposed to. They think they're a charity. And I don't know if it's because my background is in that, and I have, a certificate in managing nonprofits, and I know I'm a professional and I've worked hard to do this, and my staff works hard and they're professionals. So why aren't we doing the same thing? Why aren't we doing the same thing that these for-profit companies doing? The only thing that separates us is that we don't obviously distribute dividends. Our board doesn't make money off of us. And of course, everything we do goes right back out to our community. But there's no reason that we shouldn't operate above the red line. We should always be in the black. We should always be meeting our budget. And we should have that mind focus, and we should market ourselves and talk about ourselves as professionals in this industry that have gone to school and learned a skill set, just like anybody in a for-profit, so we're just doing good in the community, which, is a little bit different. Yeah. But we get asked all the time, like, do you get paid to do this? I'm like, yes, we do. You know,
have to.
I have to, we're meeting a gap that no one else is meeting that needs to be met. We love doing it, and it's, a passion for sure, but we are professionals. And that's why we run it like a business.
Yeah. And that's so true, because most people that I know that are involved in nonprofits are never talking about their certificates or their degrees, if you will, for that sector. Well, why do you think that is? Why does everyone kind of think that nonprofits are just a bunch of volunteers that are helping each other?
Yeah, I mean, it's been that way for as long as I can remember. And I think a lot of it is it was slower to professionalize as an industry. So even when I was in school 20 years ago, there was I went through one of the first certificate courses at UGA with my master's, and it wasn't even like a standalone program. And now we're seeing standalone masters for managing nonprofit programs, which didn't exist, prior to, probably 10, 15 years ago, that wasn't around. So there's a little bit of delay in the professionalism of it. And social work was always kind of considered too, I think, to be a real clinical field, or people always say, if I'm a social worker, they're like, oh, do you work for DFACS? I'm like, no, I don't work for DFACS. We do all these different types of things. And I think as a profession and as an industry, we were just a little bit slow to tout what we were doing, almost afraid to say yeah, we're good at this. We went to school, and a lot of people will say, oh, well, you just have to be a good listener. And it's like, no. Yeah. There's a lot more that goes into it than that. Yeah. And so I think that's a big part of it. It was just slow to professionalize and get the word out that these are people that have gone to school, they have degrees, and they work really hard to help people.
Yeah. I love that in the first 10 minutes of our conversations, you've broken down two stigmas that I think most people have. And that's, one, like I said, people are just a bunch of volunteers and no one, I guess you could assume that people are certified, but it's not talked about enough.
Sure.
It's certified professionals that are trained to be social worker. And the other stigma is a social worker kind of comes with this sadness for some reason. And I've never really thought that much about that, but why is it that social worker comes with this kind of sadness, sad undertone of conversation, and not that we should be promoting that more to give back to the community?
Well, I think the only time you hear the social work profession in the media is when there's a child removed from an abuse or neglect situation, or they failed to remove a child soon enough, or you hear it talked about with caseworkers being overworked and not getting paid enough. So the image in the media that's put out there is very negative, when in fact, like, our whole ethics and background is to empower other people and to lift them up out of where they are and to give them the tools to be successful. And so I think that's the big disconnect, because anytime you get any media coverage on it, again, it's the really sad stuff that's happening.
Yeah, and which is incredibly unfortunate.
Yes.
But I'm glad there's people like you out there that are, like I said, kind of breaking that stigma. But let's talk about how passionate you are about being a mom, because and how that plays into your daily life of running Helping Mamas. How do those correlate on the daily? Is there anything that you go home, put your daughter to bed at night, and then you go lay your head down like, this is why I help mamas? Or what does that look like for you?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, again, one of the main reasons I started this was because I saw how hard it was. And I was so lucky. My husband and I both worked. We had 2 incomes. My family's close by. And I just had all that support. And even having been, like, I'd worked, for probably 10 years before I had my daughter, my oldest. And it just never dawned on me until I actually had a child. Like, oh my goodness, like, this is what people face. And it's so much harder and so much worse when you don't have the resources. And I was almost ashamed of myself for not, like, thinking of it sooner. Like, why didn't I think of this sooner? Why did I just now dawn on me that there was this need out there? So that's kind of, but with my kids, we've raised, like, for the last 5 years, they've been intimately involved in Helping Mamas, right?
Awesome.
So, like, they come, if their school's out, they are both in school now, but when they're out of school and it's a teacher work day, they come to the office, they get put to work, they're volunteering, they're doing their work, and they can go out and pitch Helping Mamas as well as anybody can. They've just grown up around it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how they're involved. And yeah, I mean, anytime I get to put my kids to bed, anytime I get to look at them and think, thank God, like, we have a roof over our heads, we didn't worry today about X, Y, and Z, making ends meet. We didn't have to worry about those things.
Yeah.
When it gets really hard to run a nonprofit, that's when I think about, this is why we do it, because nobody else, there's so many families out there that can't say that.
Yeah. And that's so important. It's like, when things get hard, to think about your why, right?
Right. The why.
What gives you the purpose, what gives you meaning in life. And more often than not, that's going to be something that doesn't necessarily correlate with your business or with your nonprofit, right? It's kids, or it could be wanting to give back to your parents, or whatever that may be. Does it ever get uncomfortable, though, talking about running a nonprofit like a for-profit? Does it just, that's just what you do?
It's just who I am, and it's what I do. When I first got into the field, and even when I first started Helping Mamas, I would almost apologize for it, right? Like, I'd almost be like, I'm sorry I'm asking for money, or I'm sorry we're asking for this. And then it's like, I'm not asking for money for people to support me. I'm asking for money for people to support, the 300,000 children living in poverty in this city. That's what we're doing. And so I stopped apologizing for it. If we throw a fundraiser, I'm not throwing a party. I'm not asking you to pay money to come to a party. I'm throwing, an event for you to come and help children. And if we're not going to do it, then who is? And so we shouldn't apologize for it. And so I've really found that when I've connected, like, we've done fairly well with connecting with other small businesses and corporations. And the fact that I can verbalize that and say, listen, we get it. We run, on a for-profit idea, we want, and they seem to appreciate that and respect that, because they know if they're investing in us or giving us donations or time or money, that it's being spent well, because we know that every dollar counts. And so we're making it last. And so we seem to have kind of flipped that tide from me having to apologize for it to saying, you should do it. It's a good cause. It's a good mission. This is something you want to be involved in.
Yeah. So when you first started, it was you and a couple of your friends in your basement, or your friend's basement?
My garage.
Your garage.
My best friend's basement. And our husbands were super excited when we got our first space, because they got, their spaces back.
Yeah,
that was
their
lovely.
workshop back.
Yeah, they were so happy. But yeah, that's kind of, I was working full-time still, and
in the nonprofit sector.
I was working a full-time job and building this kind of on the side, because I didn't know, you don't know. And then we got to a point where it was like, this is growing, and this is growing quickly, and this is the make or break point. Like, this is the time to take the risk and do it, or it's time to shut it down, because I can't do both. And so we kind of took that leap of faith as a family, and that was very much a family decision. Like, Mom's going to do this. We're taking a massive pay cut, and we're all going to tighten up the strings a little bit, but this is what we believe in as a family, so we're doing it. And we did.
So what does that conversation look like with your family and your husband, as far as, look, I'm going to leave this full-time guaranteed salary? Because, every entrepreneur, if they have a significant other or a family, they're going to have that conversation. And I had it with my girlfriend, now wife back then. I mean, we were together years at the time. And when I left my full-time job to go full-fledged into this, and it was a lot of why would you give up the health insurance and the 401k and the guaranteed salary? But I was going from making money to a for-profit to make money, not running a nonprofit that has it equal zero at the end of the year, right?
Yeah, and we don't equal zero at the end of the year. Just like, you don't have to have an equal balance or a negative balance at the end of the year. Absolutely not. You should have a profit at the end of the year because it just goes right back into your mission.
Pours back into it. Yep.
So no, the conversation wasn't easy, and it was a long conversation, like a month-long conversation of now is the time. And it's even more, my husband's in finance, and so almost like accounting based. So he's very by numbers person. Yeah. So that was a little bit difficult. But a few things happened along the way, like the momentum we were getting. And then we were reached out to by an organization called Baby to Baby in Los Angeles. And they do what we do in LA, but just on a much larger scale. They have Jessica Alba, Julie Bowen, all of them involved. And they reached out to me pretty early on in the process. And we're like, hey, we're doing this out there. We see you're doing it there. We're trying to reach some other organizations. Maybe we could get a national network going. And so once he was able to see like, hey, other organizations are doing this and being successful. And you're right. This is what we want to teach our kids, that we give back and we're going to be okay. Yeah. But the first few months were rough because we budgeted hard. I see you have Dave Ramsey books. Yeah. We did, hardcore for, the first few, couple years that I did this with Dave Ramsey. And then we realized, we were able, since we were saving so much and doing, focusing on that, we were able to do a lot more than when we were doing as a family when we had two higher salaries because we were intentional about it. We were intentional about what we wanted to spend money on and what experiences we wanted our family to have. And that really helped. But it was tense. I mean, I'm not going to lie, it was very tense and I don't blame him. I always say my husband was my biggest critic, but now he's my biggest cheerleader. But that was great because I had to convince him. If I couldn't pitch to my husband and pitch this concept to him and get him to believe in it, I wasn't going to be able to get anybody to believe in it, right? So, and he did. He's 100% in and he's I think pretty glad he is now because we've done a lot. So
yeah, that's so awesome. That's so awesome. And I would assume in your head though, a month, 2 months in, you're like, let's do it. Let's jump.
Oh, yeah, I was like, I'm done.
Ready.
Yeah, let's do this. This is going to work. And it's like, how do you know? And I'm like, I just know.
You just know.
I just know. I always said I would never, right? I would never start my own nonprofit. I always said that because there's a million of them and they're all doing great work. And
were you saying that because there is just a million of them or did it go deeper than that?
I think because there's so many of them and there's just that stigma too, where I think we've glorified the startup on some level. Like, oh, it's so easy. Everybody jump in and like, let's all, whether it's for profit or nonprofit, anybody can do it. And that's so not true. It takes a lot to make it happen. And so, and I wasn't sure I had it in me, I wasn't sure I had it in me to really like be on my own. I'd always been at places where there was a bigger brand name behind me, in the nonprofit sector. Yeah. So building that, I mean, again, I'm a social worker. I'm not a marketing specialist. I didn't even do fundraising. I was on the program side. So just having to learn all the pieces, I wasn't sure I had it in me. So I was like, I'm never going to do it. And then the idea came and it was like, I got to do it, and I love doing it. So I was like, like 2 weeks in, I'm like, oh, I'm quitting. Let's do this.
Yeah.
No.
Then everyone else told you to wait a little bit.
Yeah, everybody did, which was fine. And I think that was a smart decision at the time. But having a child that's type 1, in my brain, it was always, we will both always have insurance in case one of us loses our job, then we have the backup insurance. So I was like constantly feeling that pressure of, what if something does happen? What if something does? And but my husband just, once he saw how we can make this work, it was like, no, you have to keep going.
Yeah. The whole insurance thing with type 1 diabetics is a nightmare. It's been pretty difficult for me because my wife's previous job, she didn't have insurance through them. Now her new job does, but switching everything over was just too much trouble. So I'm still paying outright. And before that, when we were both on just our own independent insurance, because I know obviously I'm self-employed. I don't have a job that has insurance and she didn't either. It was over $1,000 a month just paying that. And that made, honestly, for me, it lit even more of a fire underneath me because it's like, all right, time to really grind and get out there. And there's a different, grit that you have about you when you're responsible for bringing in your own income. And even for you, you're really bringing in money to support, 300,000 plus children, and your volunteers. And I'm sure you have a staff now. So it's a lot of pressure. It's a whole lot of pressure to take on. What keeps you going through that pressure, and gives you, your why? What's kind of a reminder that you have to look to your why for you?
Yeah, I mean, a couple of things. I think most entrepreneurs are internally driven, right? There's like this internal motivation. Whether I'm doing this or something else, I want to be successful. So I just have that internal drive. I don't know where it comes from. I don't know why, but I do. So for me personally, that's why. But the other day we were pitching to a potential funder for some pretty significant funding, and we had one of our partner agencies come, and we had they were Emmaus House, and we had them come and talk about how we help them. And just listening to their social worker talk about the impact we were having, not only on their families we were serving, but on them as a staff, like it blew me away. And like I almost couldn't finish the presentation because I was like, that's my why. Yeah. That's why I'm doing this. That's why I'm here. That's why I sweat it out every day is, it does make a difference. It's not just diapers going out. It's changing lives, it's letting them buy food instead of diapers. Or pay rent instead of get diapers. That's huge. And so I will now look to what Adam said about us in that presentation. I'll keep that, really close to my heart because he said it better than I ever could. But,
did you get like chills and emotional?
I did. I looked up at my operations manager and she's full on like tears down her face because all my staff had to take a leap of faith to join me. So I have 3 full-time staff. And
from the beginning, you had 3?
No, I've added them on. So there's 3 of us now. There's 3 total, me and 2 at my operations manager and someone that does development work. And they all had to take a leap of faith. I don't have insurance. I don't have a history of, it's 5 years. I can't like pull huge financial records, and say like, oh, this is how I know we're going to be stable. Yeah. And like, they're both moms too. I'm like, yeah, come quit your nice job that has, it's going to be there for a while and come join me, And so I think we all kind of had that simultaneous moment of, okay, we remember that this is why we're doing what we're doing. And we forget the stress and it kind of rolls away and it's worth the stress, And I just always think, nobody was doing it before us. There's nobody doing what we're doing. There's nobody coordinating baby supplies. There's no one getting them out. If we weren't doing it, who would be doing it? Yeah. So I can't just walk away. You can't stop.
Yeah. And when you get chills and emotional when you hear statements like you said, Adam.
He's a social worker at Emmaus House. Yeah.
When you hear that stuff and when you feel like an emotional shift in your body, to me, that's a true sign of like being an entrepreneur and really caring about what you do. I mean, I was showing you the dolls from A Doll Like Me in Wisconsin. And the day after we got back from that production, she sent me a text, the lady that owns that nonprofit. And she was like, look, this has gone viral. We're all over the place. We've been on several TV shows. I've talked to several reporters. And she said that, more often than not, it felt like they were just trying to sensationalize what kind of was going on with her. And she followed that with another text that was like, you guys get it. You guys, I can see that you care, that you're genuine. All the questions you asked were stuff that she had never been asked before. And it was to promote what she's doing for love and good in the world. And like, just this text, and I literally was getting emotional reading
you're like,
it.
This is why I'm doing this.
I'm like, this is why, I love what I do. And if I can do it to help promote people like her and what they're doing, I have chills talking about it right now.
Yeah, it's the stories, the stories, and you get to tell people's stories. And I think that's the one thing I've learned too in the nonprofit sector is you have to tell a good story. And it's not, like she said, a sensationalized story. It's an honest, true story that people can relate to. And if we don't have people like you let us tell our story, then we don't have a way to reach people, so it's so important.
So how's that look for you then? Let's get into a little bit of that because you start with nothing, right? Yes. You're by yourself in your garage in a friend's basement. Yeah. For anyone, nonprofit or for profit, I would assume doing any storytelling is so far down on the priority list because there's so much other stuff to do, right?
Yeah.
So what does that look like for you to be able to tell your story?
Yeah, so we got really lucky, and it's a very foreign concept, right? Like, and we're really careful about how we tell stories. I do not tell the sad child story. Like, we are all about empowering the women and children we serve, and so if we're going to tell a story, it has to be from an empowerment standpoint. And it took me a while to find that voice. Like, I at first didn't want to have, share any of our stories because I thought I don't want to exploit the families that we're serving.
It's
That's
like
not
privacy
okay.
thing,
But then we had several of them that would come and say, like, we want to say thank you. How can we say thank you? How can we tell people about what you're doing? And that was like, that's an outlet for them to use their voice in their situation. And so when that happens, that's how we use it. But yeah, just to learn how to do it, we got again super lucky. Kind of one of those things like Baby to Baby called us, and then like literally a month later, we pitched at United Way of Metro Atlanta, and they have a competition called the Spark Prize, and so it was for new nonprofits, and you pitched you had to create a video, and then you had to pitch Shark Tank style.
Awesome.
And it was the first time they'd ever done it. We'd been open like 5 months, and it was for $20,000, and we won.
Wow.
So I got obsessed with Shark Tank. I watched people do pitches. I did research on how you do pitches. And
who's your favorite shark?
I mean, I love Mark Cuban.
Okay,
yeah. I mean, I just feel like he's almost down to earth, right?
Yeah.
Like, and he gets it. And, he's not into the drama of it all, which I like. And he's into sports, and I love sports. So I like him.
Yeah.
But,
so you got obsessed with the show.
Yeah. So I just started watching. I watch it all the time now. Haven't had a chance to watch it this season much.
It's great background noise for like an entrepreneur too.
It
I just put
is.
it on and then do my thing in the house.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's also how I kind of look too for sometimes sponsors. I'm like, there's a female out there starting a company, and then I'll look and I'll see if they've done well. After Shark Tank, I'll try to reach out and say like, hey, it's not worked yet, but I'm still trying that route. But so I just taught myself how to pitch. It was like, you have 3 minutes to tell your story. And I was used to writing grants, and in grants you have 10 pages to tell your story. And so I was like, I need to put 10 pages into 3 minutes. How do I do that? And so just practice. And so now people tell me like, you have the best elevator pitch. And I'm like, yeah, it's because I had to know it. And thankfully we won, and it got us our first warehouse, which was 2,500 square feet. And we had that for about 3 years. And then we jumped up to the one we're in now, which is 9,000. So
awesome.
So yeah, that's, you have to learn, and when you're in social work school, they don't teach you logistics. I didn't know anything about pallet jacks and dock plates and shelving systems. I don't know. I mean, you have to learn, you know?
Yeah, I mean, that's just getting more certified in a way, right? It's all part of the operations. And if you're going to make it become something and actually grow it to where you can make a substantial impact, whether you like it or not, you have to suck it up and, put on your boots and do it.
You gotta do it.
Yeah. And you talked about telling the stories of empowerment and all that. Do you have one that comes to mind that is like you remember? I would love to hear it.
Yeah. So we were, and so the way we work is we don't give directly to the moms. We give to social workers, and they come and get it. And a lot of that is because we want to remove barriers. It's impossible to get around in this town. And if we had to ask these families to go to one more place to get one more thing, it may just, tip the scale. So social workers come and get product from us. So we had a social worker and a school system reach out, and there was a high schooler who was a teen mom and wasn't living at home, had been in a domestic violence situation, and she was desperate to graduate. Like, she knew if she could just graduate, that would change everything for her and her child. And the one thing, so the school was amazing. They'd worked, they got her taxi vouchers to get her to and from her place that she was living to the school. And they'd gotten a daycare to meet her at the school to get the child. And the only thing that was missing in that whole piece was a car seat. And so we were able to go, I was like, that's a no-brainer. Of course, we're going to do the car seat. We got the car seat, and she was able to finish and graduate. She wasn't asking for it. She wanted to do better. She wanted to grow. She wanted to have a good life for her and her child. And she was doing everything humanly possible to make that happen. And so we got a thank you from her. And it was just so powerful, and it was so moving. And you're like, yeah, this is why we do it. She's a fighter. She's trying to survive, and they've done everything, and there's one piece missing. And so it was great to be able to fill that one missing piece.
Yeah, well, I mean, it relates to how you started. You buckled down, got on a budget with the Dave Ramsey financial program, but more importantly, you started living with intention, and you saw that in her, and everything she was doing was with intention to better herself. So I mean, people like that deserve help, and unfortunately need help more often than not. But when there's nonprofits like you out there that actually genuinely care, hopefully that puts her at ease a little bit.
And I think that too, and that's kind of what we always wanted to say. That was kind of like the underlying theme of why too with Helping Mamas is if I could have my friends and family surround these other families, then they would know there's other people out there that care, right? Like it's just not a great time to feel good, right now in the world. And so if we could provide some of that kindness and that good, sometimes that's all people need is to know that one more person cares about them, that they are worth something. And so it's kind of cute. We have, when we have kids come in to volunteer, we have them make cards for the moms and the kids, and it goes out in the packages. They just need to know everybody needs to hear they're going to make it and they're going to be okay. And that someone's rooting for them. And so we kind of hope that's what we've created too, is like this whole other group of people that are surrounding all these families, and cheering them on. I'm not judging them, not saying, why are you in this situation, but just honestly cheering them on and wanting the best.
Yeah. So you're 5 years in. What would you say is your biggest challenge at this stage? Because I'm sure it's vastly different than 1 year. But right now, what would be your biggest obstacle and challenge?
I would say we had a really strong grassroots effort at the beginning, and that was really exciting. And now we're at that tipping point where I'm not sure. I can take us any further with PR and like marketing and getting our branding. Because in order to grow, we've got to have better connections. And so we're looking at possibly getting some PR help. And that's a big decision to make. It's hard to say, is that the right next move? But I feel like it's not my background. I can't take us any further in that route. And if we have a better brand name and people recognize us and see us more, then we're going to get more product in. And I always tell people, the more product we get in, the more kids we help. And so everything I feel like I look at is, can that person help us? Can this person help us? And it's like, sometimes you want to shut that part of your brain off and just be, but literally every person I'm like, how can they help us? What can they do? And so part of me feels like I need to take a step back from that and let a professional do it and kind of know when I've always felt like I had to know when, like, okay, I've gone as far as I can in this. Like, so I had to bring somebody on for fundraising. And I'd taken us as far as we could go, right? Like, I needed someone who knew how to do this to come on. So I think the challenges are always like, when is it the next time to make the next move? Like you just never, you want to make sure it's the right time to make that next move. And being a nonprofit, and people listening may say, well, why would you hire a PR firm? Wouldn't you just put that money back into helping kids? And we get that all the time. And, we try to be responsible with what we have, but we know what the potential for growth is. And if I'm not tapping into that and I'm not doing it correctly, then I'm not doing my job.
Yeah. And that's how it relates to a for-profit because with us, we have all of this gear, this studio space, and we own it all, no debt on any of it. And that allows us the opportunity to give back or to work with anyone's budgets. And we're not having to pay leases on this gear or anything like that. But we were able to do that because we poured so much money back into our company. And it's the same thing for your nonprofit. You have to pour money back. And sometimes that's in the form of hiring a PR firm to take you to the next level, which then leads to bigger impact, right?
Yeah, and that's the goal. And everything that we raise goes right back into the kids we serve. I'm never getting rich off this. I have no desire to. My team has no desire to. Everything we raise goes right back into the kids we serve. And I just feel like we're tapped out. We've made so much progress. We have so much more momentum, but it's like I can see there's so much more out there that we could do, and there's so many more kids that we can help. I just need help to take it to the next level. So, we're considering those things, and then you just have to know when is it the right time to make, like I said, when's the right time to make the next move.
Yeah. Do you find that it's, you have to be way less impulsive in a nonprofit space? Because there's been times I'd spent like $1,500 on this camera stabilization thing, and next day aired it here. I was like, oh, this would be great for the shoot that we're going. It was actually this Wisconsin shoot. It didn't work. Like it's literally just sitting in the box still and all that. And like, if I was a nonprofit, I don't think I could rest at night knowing I just made that impulsive decision.
I am so cautious. It's hilarious. So when Jan, who's our director of community individual support, she does our fundraising, came on, I was out of town at a conference, speaking at a conference, and she was with Sharita, our operations manager. And she was like, Sharita, where do I get office supplies? And Sharita was like, oh, we don't buy office supplies. And which is funny because I would have bought, we all laugh about it now. So Jan called some friends and said, I need office supplies. I just started at this new nonprofit. And like 2 days later, this big box of office supplies shows up. And I was like, where did all this come from? And she was like, well, Sharita said we don't buy office supplies. I was like, I would have bought you paper and pens and office supplies, but I'm so cautious about what we spend. And I was just tired too of being in nonprofits where I would walk into a supply closet and literally see it stuffed full and like never get used. So I only buy stuff when we need it. it's funny too. Before I had staff and it was just me and, my best friend would come and cover for me. We had this group coming in to volunteer and I was like, oh, Katie, oh my gosh, I don't think there's toilet paper at the office and I'm not there. Can you bring toilet paper from your house? She's like, would you buy toilet paper? Like that is not a bad expense. We need toilet paper in the office, but
everyone needs that.
Everybody needs that. And so, but that's how I hate to say cheap, but that's how cautious I am about how we spend things. Like I'm so cautious,
Yeah. And I think what's important is taking that mindset to, if you hire a PR firm, instilling that same mindset. Like we're not hiring you guys to rack up cost of marketing and public relations. We're going to be non-impulsive about all the spending through that as well. So you really seem like the type of person that even if you do hire an outside PR firm, you're not just saying, okay, here's money, do whatever,
Yeah, they
you guys
even,
take it.
a couple of folks that we've talked to, they even verbalize, like we recognize that these are diapers you could be buying. Like we recognize that this
That's
is
awesome.
And so I was like, you might be the right people for me. We recognize. So our job is to make sure that what you invest has a return on investment so that what you're spending needs to go back into diapers and we need to get diapers on babies. And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
So, we're just looking at it. And again, like, you just can't, we don't apologize for running like a business. I have to serve more kids. Like we're only serving about 7% of the kids living in poverty right now. We serve almost 15,000 kids a year, and that's it's not a drop in the bucket. So in order to get bigger and do more, we have to do that.
You have to grow.
You have to grow.
Yeah. Wow. Well, you're doing incredible work. I mean, I love that you're just giving so much back and like your mentality towards it. And it sounds like running it as a for-profit is just doing nothing but helping propel your nonprofit to the next level, to the next level, to the next level. And you're not romanticizing, this whole nonprofit, everything has to go directly to the diapers. It's okay to buy a bigger warehouse, to have more inventory, to be able to give more. And it's just being strategic about it. And that's, with anything in life, right? Whether you're talking business, for-profit or nonprofit, or you're talking about just going to the gym, being intentional, being smart, strategizing, and thinking about all the outcomes and differences. So how can people get involved with you as far as someone wants to volunteer? If you guys are looking for volunteers,
we always look for volunteers. We love volunteers. There are there's 3 of us full time and we serve over 15,000 children a year. We couldn't do it without volunteers. So if you go to our webpage, it's helpingmamas.org. You can find out how you can donate, how you can volunteer, how you can host a drive, events that we have going on that if you want to come to. So that's the best way to do it. And we get right back to you and get you involved.
And on Instagram,
we're on Instagram at Helping Mamas, and Twitter and on Facebook.
Okay, awesome. Well, is there any last words you want to add, or any advice you would give to someone just starting a nonprofit?
I think it would be a couple of things. Take the risk and believe in yourself.
Yeah.
If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But take the risk and believe in yourself, and then surround yourself with people that know what they're doing and believe in you. And we wouldn't have grown. We wouldn't be where we are today if we hadn't surrounded ourselves with people who really cared about our mission and who had expertise in certain areas that I just didn't have. And that was the key.
That's awesome. Well, I can guarantee you that my wife and I are going to be getting on your website and figuring out how we can volunteer, because we don't have kids ourselves, just 2 dogs, but it's in the future. So would love to get involved. And if you need any help with video, just let me know. I would love to.
We would love it.
Love to help you out. Thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you guys so much for listening once again or watching the Late Night Startup Show. If you are enjoying these episodes and if they're providing you some sort of value or entertainment, or you just like my bald head, then give us a thumbs up, give us a 5-star review, 3-star, whatever. Be honest. I can take the feedback. Speaking of feedback, provide some feedback and subscribe to YouTube or whatever podcast platform you are listening to this episode on. It would really help us in the form of getting more sponsors and maintaining this thing and just keeping it going and building this community of just awesome people and awesome entrepreneurs in Atlanta, because that's what this podcast is for. Thank you for joining us. See you next time.